Take a look at the recently released AP Top 25 poll. The Big Ten has 5 teams inside that top 25, including 3 of the top 6 in Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. Much more on this group and what to watch for from the Week 9 schedule. Dave Revson standing by with one of our very favorite all-time guests.
And Fox Sports lead game analyst Joel Klatt joining us now. Joel, before we look ahead, I always like to look back. And you guys had Washington, Michigan on Big Noon, which was a pivotal game for both of those teams. You think about the Wolverines, the way they looked against USC, and then the way they looked a week later against Washington, just totally different. What changed here for Michigan? Why were they able to flip that script?
They went back to the drawing board, foundational principles. You know, this was the way I liken it is, you know, you're going through old things. Maybe you got a box of old memories from your childhood or something, and you find the old Rubik's Cube that you used to play with, and you're like, oh, that's cool. You know, it's like Michigan found their old Rubik's Cube and solved it. And they went back to blocking and tackling, playing complementary football. That was as vintage a Michigan win as I can remember in the last 2 years, certainly since Jerome Moore has been the full-time head coach. Their ability to run the football, it starts with that always. And even when Evan Link went down and Frazier comes in and they got 3 redshirt freshmen on the offensive line, they got a redshirt freshman in their backfield, they've got a true freshman at quarterback, they were able to impose their will on Washington and run the football early in the downset. That changed the entire landscape for how Bryce Underwood could throw the football. He ends up being so efficient because they're getting him outside of the pocket, utilizing their tight ends. He's 21 of 27. They had not utilized the tight ends to that anywhere close to that ability over the first half of the season. And then now all of a sudden the tight ends show up like they used to. Again, the old Rubik's Cube. And then on the defensive side, I would just say going into that game, I thought it was a really bad matchup for Michigan because they like to blitz so much. And if you blitz Damon Williams, I think you're going to be in a world of hurt because he can expose a seam or he can expose an area of the field so quickly. And they sat in coverage, and they didn't blitz. In fact, they blitzed 19% of the time they came in as the #1 blitz team in the country at 50%. And so sitting and making him make reads, keeping him in the pocket, that was crucial for them. I think they're a better defense when they do not manipulate their coverage and when they do not blitz and they allow themselves to just force the opponent to snap it over and over and over again. And then that opponent generally makes a mistake. And, Rev, that's exactly what happened when Damon Williams threw him those couple of interceptions.
3 turnovers in all for Washington, a team that doesn't turn it over very often, but you wouldn't have known it from watching that one. They have a huge game against Illinois this week. We'll talk about that in a bit, but it's interesting to think, week to week things change so much, right? And you talked about Michigan and how dramatically different things were. I look at the team that they had lost to the week before in USC, and man, they go to Notre Dame, and they had done such a great job on the line of scrimmage against Michigan, and then against Notre Dame, you give up more than 300 rushing yards, and so now you're 5-2. You probably have to run the table to be in the CFP. What needs to happen here for USC to make that happen?
Well, it's very clear, you know, what the blueprint is to go against USC. And that is exactly what Illinois and then Notre Dame exposed, running the football directly right at them because they're not quite equipped. Even though I like what they're doing and I like the trajectory of the program, currently they're not quite equipped to sit in there and defend the run like some of these other teams in the Big Ten. Okay, that's just where they're at from a physical nature in their front 7. They need to get bigger and they need to continue to get better at the second level. Now, having said that, on the offensive side, it's something similar. Rev, it's exactly what I just talked about. Michigan could not run the ball on first down or got behind in the game against USC, and so the game style was pressed upon them where they couldn't sit there and play their style of game. They weren't balanced, and then all of a sudden Underwood has to throw the football when he has to, and that's not where you want to be. Well, Notre Dame put USC in a position where they struggled running it on first down. Now, all of a sudden, you lose that balance for a team that's as balanced as anybody in the country. And when you lose that balance, you lose the conflict on the defenders, in particular in the little play action and RPO game. And that impacts the efficiency with which you can throw the football. You throw a little rain on there, and now all of a sudden, you're having to press. I did not love the sequence in the second quarter when they get down there and it's 3rd and short inside the 20 and they throw the ball twice rather than running the ball twice. I didn't love the trick play in the rain, although I understand what Lincoln is trying to do. He's trying to push the ball uphill, if you will, a little bit. Yes, they were exposed a bit. They need to fix that run defense. I think that's first and foremost. And when they defend the run well or can get a lead early, this is a much different team.
The challenge is they have a number of teams left on that schedule that are going to want to try to run it right at them. So we'll see whether or not they're able to adjust. Because, again, as we talked about.
Northwestern will run it right at them.
Yep.
You know, I mean.
Probably don't have a ton of margin
Iowa?
for error. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention Oregon, obviously, as well.
Oregon runs it 36 times a game. Just ran it for like 1 billion yards against Rutgers.
Yes. You have the Big Ten. Speaking of Oregon, you have the Big Ten with 3 of the top 4 spots in your most recent rankings. You have Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, and then you've got Oregon there at number 4. So I think as we all look at it now, and we were conditioned last year to understand, hey, no league was going to get more than one team to get a bye. That's no longer the case. And so, first of all, I think it's important to help people understand that that is no longer the case. But then the other thing I would say is, hey, how likely is it now that the Big Ten could end up with multiple teams getting byes based on what you're seeing and where you evaluate these teams?
I would be shocked if they don't have 2 teams get a bye. I think that there's a real outside shot that they get 3. To be honest with you, because there's a scenario where Indiana and Ohio State can make it to Indianapolis and play for the Big Ten championship, both as undefeateds. In that scenario, Oregon could be 11-1. 11-1 Oregon is a top 4 team, you know, and period. And if Indiana and Ohio State play as undefeateds, the loser is not falling out of the top 4. So in that scenario, I think that the Big Ten gets 3 of the 4 byes, and the other bye will go to the SEC champ. The SEC is suffering from a little, you know, what I would say of a parity depth issue. I don't think the SEC is great at the top like the Big Ten is. They are deeper, though, in the middle, and I don't think you can argue that. And so as they beat themselves up, the winner of that conference is likely to have a loss, even though A&M is undefeated, and maybe 2. And that team is likely to get that bye. And you could be sitting there in the Big Ten with a 13-0 team, a 12-1 team, and an 11-1 team. And in that scenario, I think the Big Ten would get 3 of the 4 byes and top seeds.
The Big Ten has to feel good about those 3 getting into the playoff. I think the question is there going to be a 4th team that emerges? Yeah. And we've kind of been talking about it all week, Joel. We got these 8 teams at 5-2. Overall, and so now a bunch of them are playing one another this week. One we've got on our air that we're really excited about is Illinois against Washington. Illinois was the lone Big Ten team with a bye last week. Now they travel west. They take on that Washington team that we were just talking about. Somebody's going to get themselves to 6-2 and get one step closer to the playoff. How do you separate those 2?
Well, the matchup is fascinating because of all the familiarity, and I'm sure you've been talking about it. But with Ryan Walters as the defensive coordinator for Washington, who really, you know, rose to coordinator fame at Illinois under Brett Bielema and coordinated that #1 defense in the country in, 2022. He's going to have all the answers to the test because Brett's not changing, right? Like that Illinois team is the Illinois team. They've been running the similar things. They hired his understudy, Aaron Henry, to be the defensive coordinator. So Ryan's going to have a ton of familiarity with Illinois, and yet Illinois is going to have a ton of familiarity with what Ryan likes to do, how he likes to adjust, what coverages he likes to run. So this is as good of a schematic behind-the-scenes matchup as everyone was going to want to talk about Damon Williams and Luke Altmaier and all these different guys on the field. And yes, I love to celebrate the stars, but the behind-the-scenes of what's going on currently during the week in the game plan, to me, is a fascinating thought experiment. When I look at this game, you know, I think the location is a big deal. I do think that you have to play zone coverage and you've got to keep Damon Williams hemmed in. And if Illinois can do that, then they're going to have a shot. Make no mistake about it. Ryan Walters will understand specifically how to defend Illinois. And you can take a little bit of what Ohio State did, which is play your safeties low, imagine that they're not going to take shots over the top, and really try to make it difficult on Luke Altmaier to complete those run-pass options, in particular those in-breaking routes. That made life difficult on Illinois against Ohio State, and I think that's what Washington will ultimately at least try to do against Illinois this week.
So that's our big game here on the Big Ten Network. Your big game on Fox Big Noon is UCLA, Indiana. These are both great stories. I mean, UCLA has turned into a remarkable story here under Tim Skipper, but obviously you guys are at this game because of Indiana, which has been as remarkable a story, and you and I have talked about it, as we've seen in college football probably in the last few decades. I'm curious from you, you've spent time around IU now, and Curt Cignetti got the huge contract extension last week. What do you think his particular genius is? I mean, I think there are some coaches that are X and O geniuses. There are some coaches that are talent evaluation geniuses. There are some that are motivational geniuses. Is there one area? I know he's good at all of them. You're not as successful as he is without being good at all of them. But is there one where you're like, man, he is just great at that?
I mean, there are multiple areas. I don't think you do what he's done at Indiana without multiple areas. But let me single out a couple. I think great coaches have a beauty of simplicity about the way that they communicate expectations to their players. And then the coaches that have a hard line on those expectations and don't deviate from them, those are the guys that have success. See, it's not about the style with which you talk to the team or go about it or the style of play that you have. It's really that. Can I articulate a simple expectation and then hold you accountable to that expectation? He would call it the process. I think he learned it from Nick Saban. That's Curt Cignetti's genius. And those guys understand what is expected of them, and they're able to clearly define it and then clearly reach it. And then the other thing is I would also say that there is some schematic genius as well, because of the teams that I cover, I think Indiana does the best job of attacking an opponent's specific weaknesses as anybody. You know, in college football, there's a little bit more reliance on your own structure or your own system versus a specific matchup against an opponent like you would see in the NFL. And with Cignetti, it's a bit more like the NFL because there is some real specificity with the way that their defense attacks an offense, the way their offense attacks a defense. And that's the credit to Mike Shanahan and Bryant Haynes, their two coordinators, who develop very specific and articulate and quality game plans each and every week.
Yeah, when we visited with him this summer, and we were talking to him a little bit about how they did it last year and whether they'd be able to do it this year, the first thing he said was holding on to both those coordinators was a huge
and he's going to need to this year because the people will come knocking for those two guys, and rightly so. And so I'm not as interested in the $11.6 million that Curt Cignetti got. I'm more interested in is like, what's the pool for the assistants? You know, can they hang on to those guys, and how much will it take to hang on to those guys?
Well, he mentioned Haynes in particular. A lot of people came after in the offseason, and he was able to hold on to him, so that bodes well for the future. Have a great time in your immediate future in Bloomington. We'll look forward to hearing the call with Gus and Jenny coming up here on Saturday. Thanks, as always, for your time, Joel.
You got it. Have a good day.